Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Cameron Proudfoot. We're honoured to acknowledge Mr. W. Patrick Murphy, Acting Assistant Secretary, Bureau of East Asia Pacific Affairs, United States of America, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. I now invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is birth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us, in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal William Mason Proudfoot. William Proudfoot was born in Perth, Scotland, around 1889, the son of George and Jane Proudfoot. He trained as a mechanic and worked on the railways, while gaining 2 years military experience as a volunteer in the Forfarshire Garrison Artillery. At the age of 23, he emigrated to Brisbane, where he worked as a porter on Queensland railways. In May 1915, Proudfoot enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force, joining the reinforcements for the 9th Australian Infantry Battalion. After 3 months training near Brisbane, he embarked on the transport ship Kiara in August 1915. He arrived on the island of Lemnos in mid-November. The 9th Battalion had arrived on the island from Anzac Cove earlier in the month as part of the British and Allied evacuations from the Gallipoli Peninsula. At this time, the Australian Imperial Force took on an influx of recruits and effectively doubled in size. Each original battalion was split in half, with the remainder made up of new recruits such as Proudfoot. In this way, every unit had a corps of soldiers with battle experience. About half of the veterans of the 9th Battalion formed a new unit, the 49th Australian Infantry Battalion, and Proudfoot transferred to this unit. The 49th Battalion undertook training on Lemnos for the remainder of November and December. In January, the unit sailed to Alexandria in Egypt, where they continued their training at the Tel El Kebir camp. Proudfoot was promoted to the rank of Corporal in April. He and his comrades trained in Egypt until June of 1916, when they sailed for France. The unit's first major battle was at Mouquet Farm, near Pozières, on the Somme River in France. During the fighting on the 3rd to the 5th of September, the officers in Proudfoot's company were all killed or wounded, and Proudfoot and other non-commissioned officers worked hard to keep their men together. For his actions in this, his first battle, Proudfoot was awarded the Military Medal. In this battle, he was also badly wounded in his right leg. He spent 4 months recovering in hospital at the British camp in Étaples on the coast of France. This meant that he was out of the trenches for part of the bitter winter of 1916 and 1917. When he returned to the front in February 1917, his unit was preparing to follow up on the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line. Proudfoot fought again at Naroi in early April, before spending 2 weeks on leave in England during the May. He returned to his battalion in early June, and 3 days later, on the 7th of June 1917, his unit attacked the German lines at Messines in Belgium, just over the border with France. He was badly wounded in the fight, and while lying on a stretcher waiting to be moved, a shell exploded nearby and killed him instantly. Survived by his widow Isabella and his daughter Agnes Muriel Proudfoot, William Proudfoot was 29 years old. 2 of William's brothers also served in the AIF. His older brother, Corporal George Proudfoot, who returned to Australia, and his younger brother, Private Robert George Henderson Proudfoot, who was killed at Pozières in August of 1916. William Proudfoot's name is inscribed at the Menengate Memorial in Belgium, alongside the names of 6,000 Australians killed in the Ypres sector, whose gravesite is unknown. Corporal William Mason Proudfoot is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal William Mason Proudfoot, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.